Hello, and welcome to the Calm Portal, where every story is a gentle passage into a deep and peaceful rest. Tonight, we drift to a quiet village tucked between the edge of the forest and the arms of a silver lake, a place where the night carries old stories in its folds, where whispers cling to the treetops, and the brave are not those who battle monsters, but those who understand them. So as you close your eyes and soften into the surface beneath you, let your arms and legs find their own comfort and allow your body to gently settle into stillness, noticing any residual tension from the day leaving the body, and softening your jaw, your shoulders, and your chest. And when you're ready, taking a few slow, easy breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. Allowing your breath to rise and fall, welcoming the peace that's already beginning to rise from within. With each exhale, let yourself drift deeper to a starry night filled with the scent of pine needles and wood smoke on the crisp evening air. There is a distant hoot of an owl keeping watch over the sleeping world. And in the heart of the village, a small cottage where a boy named Johnny was born, a little bit different from everyone else. From his first breath, Johnny never knew fear. When other children hid under bed sheets at tales of the forest devil, Johnny only tilted his head with curiosity. When thunder cracked across the sky and the roof tiles shuddered, he would run outside barefoot, arms wide, laughing at the storm. Johnny was different. Not hard-hearted, just untouched by fear. Where others braced themselves, Johnny would simply stay open. Not because he didn't understand danger, but because something inside him believed in what lay beyond it. One winter's night, as stars twinkled softly above, some of the villagers gathered around a crackling fire, while the town elder wove tales of eerie forest spirits, cunning foxes, and the old magic that hummed beneath their feet. The elder stared deep into the flames, his voice low and calm as he whispered, "The night spirit makes its way through the forest, moving like a soft breeze, quiet and unseen. But if you fear her, she will come and steal your breath." The children's hands gripped their parents a little tighter, a quiet tremble passing through the circle. The firelight flickered, shadows stretching long across the cold earth. But Johnny sat with an easy stillness, as if the dark held no power over him at all. Moments later, Johnny stood quietly and slipped on his worn boots. "Then I'll go find her," he said confidently. "I'll bring back what she's taken." And without another word, he walked into the dark. In the forest, where the trees leaned closer and closer, Johnny reached the edge of a still river. The water shimmered in the moonlight, smooth and dark as glass. And then from its depths, a figure rose. The river keeper. His skin was the color of moss and green mud, and his eyes gleamed like fish scales. He smiled. but it was not a friendly smile. "Who comes to my river?" he growled, stepping forward. Johnny did not flinch. Instead, he knelt by the riverbank and dipped his hands into the cool water to scoop up some fresh water to drink. The river keeper's smile faltered. "I have kept this river for 1,000 years, he said. "I guard its secrets, and those who try to take from it are lost forever beneath the ripples." Johnny looked into his eyes and then reached into his pocket. From beneath his rough shirt he pulled a small, worn wooden flute and played a simple song, with notes like raindrops light and free, rising and falling with the river's current. The river keeper listened, and the hard lines on his face began to soften. "No one has ever sung to me before," he said, voice almost gentle. Johnny smiled. The river keeper knelt and touched the water. "Take this," he said, and from the riverbed he brought forth a smooth pearl glowing faintly with the moon's light. "This pearl holds the river's heart, the stories of all who have come before," the river keeper said thoughtfully. "It is a gift for you, Johnny, because you hear what others ignore." Johnny took the pearl gently, feeling its cool weight settle in his palm. "It will remind you," the river keeper added, "that even in stillness, life flows beneath the surface, waiting to be seen and understood." Johnny nodded, a quiet promise in his eyes. "Thank you," he said softly. After leaving the river behind, Johnny walked deeper into the forest. The trees stood tall and silent, their branches whispering secrets to the night sky. In the blackest part of the forest, where even moonlight lost its way, Johnny found her, the night spirit. She hovered just above the moss, her hooves not touching the earth, her eyes hollow like empty wells. A faint dark glow traced her outline, making her look like an enchanted shadowed unicorn. Up close, the night spirit was not the monstrous spectre from the elders' tales, but something far more haunting in its loneliness. "Leave this place," she hissed, breath curling like frost, "or I'll haunt your dreams." But Johnny only stepped forward, steady and unafraid. He reached out slowly, his fingers brushing against her soft muzzle. When he pulled back, his skin was cold and damp, not from dew, but from tears that had fallen silently onto his hand, each one a tiny mirror reflecting faces from the past. "Why do you frighten people?" he asked, his voice genuinely curious. The creature shuddered. "The living rush through their days like startled deer. They forget to taste their food, to touch the bark of ancient trees, to listen to their grandparents' last stories. But fear? Fear makes them pause. When I steal their breath for one trembling moment, they remember what it is to be alive." Johnny studied the creature before him. She wasn't just stealing breath, he realized. She was collecting attention. So he gave her what no one else had. Not fear, not flight, just presence. Johnny's eyes softened as he listened to her words, the weight of centuries folded into each breath she took. "They call me a monster because they don't know how to hold their own shadows. But I am not their enemy. I am the reminder they try to run from." Johnny nodded slowly. "You don't frighten me," he said. "You remind me of what is very real and hidden deep within me." The night spirit's form seemed to still, as if those words had wrapped her in a fragile warmth. "I hold it all," the night spirit said. "The fears no one dares to name, the trembling heartbeats of children hiding under beds. I gather the worry that knots in their chest, the dread that steals their sleep, the echoes of every silent scream. They fear me because I interrupt them," she went on. "In a world that praises speed and distraction, I ask them to be still, and when they are still, they feel it all. The grief that never had words, the longing they buried, the love they lost. It overwhelms them, so they blame me." Johnny listened, feeling the weight of her burden settle in the space between them. She was not a monster, but a vessel, a keeper of the shadows humanity tried to forget. "But from this darkness," she continued, her voice shifting, "I create something else. Something fragile but true." Johnny looked at her curious. "What is it?" he asked. "Stillness," she whispered. "Stillness so complete it can hold the truth, the heartache, the sorrow, the unspeakable, until it becomes something else, until it softens into quiet knowing." And as the sun began to climb through the trees, the night spirit exhaled a silver breath, soft and glowing, and placed it in his palm. It was the stolen breath of the village, shining, warm and alive. "This," the night spirit said, "is what lives underneath fear. If they stayed long enough to listen, they would hear it too." Johnny stared down at the orb. It flickered in his hand, responding to the warmth of his skin as though recognizing him. "I'll help them remember," he said. The path back through the forest felt different now. The trees no longer loomed, the air no longer heavy. Even the ground seemed softer beneath Johnny's feet, as though the earth itself was grateful for what he carried. By the time he reached the village, the sun had fully risen, and light poured over rooftops and gardens. People gathered in tight, anxious clusters, eyes darting towards the tree line. Children clung to their mothers, elders clutched charms and whispered prayers. No one noticed Johnny at first until a small voice called out, "Look, he's back!" Heads turned. Johnny stepped into the center of the square and raised his hand, the silver orb still floating just above his palm, glowing faintly, pulsing like a sleeping animal. "This," he said, loud enough for all to hear, "is your breath, your energy, your life, your fear, your forgetting, and your remembering." The villagers stared in silence. "She didn't take it to hurt you," Johnny continued. "She held it because you couldn't. She carried what you didn't know how to name. And in that stillness, she waited for someone to listen." A few people glanced at one another. A dog barked once and then fell quiet. "You say she's a monster," Johnny said, "but she's just a mirror. And maybe what you saw in her was what you didn't want to see in yourselves." The wind shifted, and a child stepped forward. "Is she gone?" she asked. "No," Johnny said. "She's part of the forest, part of the night, part of you. She's not here to be feared, she's here to be honored." He knelt and pressed the orb into the soil at the center of the village square. As it sank in gently, the light spreading like roots beneath the earth, and a moment later a low hum passed through the ground, subtle but steady. And then from that patch of soil a small flower bloomed. With pale silver petals trembling in the breeze, the villagers gasped. An old woman stepped forward, touching her chest. "I remember now," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I remember the song my mother used to sing. I hadn't thought of it in decades." All around, faces began to shift. Shoulders relaxed, eyes widened. Some wept, some smiled, and all collectively breathed. Not in fear, but in presence. Johnny sat beside the flower, watching it sway. The silence that filled the village was no longer heavy. That night, as stars returned to the sky, he stood at the edge of the forest. He didn't call out, he didn't need to. The night spirit knew. In the distance, an owl called once. A breeze stirred the leaves, and somewhere deep within the woods, a silver breath moved through the trees. No longer lost, no longer feared. Thank you for joining me in the Calm Portal. The portal to calm is always within you.